Alright, so let me explain what just happened. So, I was editing my Bravely Second review. I had all my footage in the folder part in Adobe Premiere, and when I went to drag it over, because that's what I usually do in the timeline to sort of cut it into bits, it for some reason told me the footage was like corrupted or something. I don't remember exactly what it says, but basically 38 hours of footage is now gone. So what that means for this review is that unfortunately it's not going to be visually interesting or anything. What I'm going to do is include stock footage from trailers and such like that, because I really don't want to go back and play the entire game again or play it even more than I had to already. So I'm sorry that I had to do this, and I'm sorry the review won't be as visually interesting, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I hope you enjoy my thoughts, and I hope you don't get too mad. So, it's been quite a long time since I played Bravely Default or really any JRPG, and the latter has been a deliberate choice. For reasons I'll get into later, JRPGs aren't my favorite thing in the world to play, so I simply just avoid them whenever I can. Unfortunately, Bravely Second is no exception, but as much as I've tried to separate my feelings on the genre from my feelings on Bravely Second, I can't bring myself to enjoy this title all that much. Now, I realize that many critics and Europeans have been praising this game quite a bit, and they aren't wrong. Bravely Second is an okay game. It's very aware that it's a sequel to Bravely Default, a game admired by many 3DS owners, and it tries to appeal to that fan base while simultaneously trying to be inviting to newer players. What I will say right off the bat is that Bravely Second and Layer is a perfect sequel for fans of Bravely Default. If you liked Bravely Default, you'll definitely enjoy this sequel, as it builds off the previous story, keeps the same gameplay style, and add some more variety. So don't let me stop you from buying Layer if you liked Bravely Default, because this review is coming from someone who didn't like Bravely Default as much as everybody else did. See, I did finish Bravely Default, and in the beginning I was having a swell time. The new Default and Brave mechanics felt truly new and innovative, so I was engaged in almost every battle. Not to mention, the fact that you could turn off random encounters was fantastic for just exploring. That being said, the first game was not without flaws. Grinding was a necessity and bogged down the pace of the game. I'll be the first to say it, grinding is an awful gameplay element, and as a developer for turn-based RPGs, it should be your mission to limit it as much as possible. And if you want players to grind enemy after enemy to progress, at least make all of the fights entertaining from both a visual and gameplay standpoint. I know a lot of you will disagree and rush to the comments to assert my lack of skill at RPGs or argue that grinding is not that bad. You're just bad at the game. I beat it on my first try. Trust me, I'm familiar with these arguments, so I encourage you not to waste your energy. For one thing, I guarantee that many of those commenters haven't even played the game, so until you've actually played it for yourself, I urge you to abstain from assuming I must suck. Look, I understand that lots of people really like JRPGs, and that some people even find grinding therapeutic or just part and parcel of the JRPG experience. It's also worth noting that some RPGs are a lot better with this than others. At the end of the day, it's none of my business to tell you what genres you can or cannot like. But that doesn't mean my complaints are illegitimate or that I must suck at video games because I don't want to waste my precious time fighting the same goblin over and over again. And trust me, I'm not the only one who feels this way. Anyways, while I quite enjoyed Bravely Default at the beginning, the grinding, weak second half, and unusually rough boss fights just ruined the experience for me. There's a lot I can talk about Bravely Second, but after playing this for almost 40 consecutive hours, I am mentally and physically exhausted. Nintendo sent us, or maybe just me and a few other reviewers, this game a few days ago and said the embargo was a few days later. Since I really wanted to meet the embargo, unlike almost every other review I put out, I decided, hey, wouldn't it be a brilliant idea to just power my way through it until I beat it so I can make my review for the embargo? Obviously, this was not a good idea, but that was a few days ago me. Instead of having a full-length review like I would normally do, I've decided to just briefly explain my stance on this game. Okay, so let's begin with some positives. I think that's good. Now onto the negatives. I'm just joking with you. There's quite a bit to like about Bravely Second. The story is quite compelling as it incorporates characters from its predecessor and you get to see how they've changed over the years. It's an interesting angle for the plot as the beginning feels, at least to someone who's played Bravely Second, like old friends catching up. Especially with the sequence of finding Tiz. The story keeps you engaged and interested in what happens next. Under these FTC regulations I have, and not wanting to spoil anything, I can't and don't want to explicitly talk about the plot and what it involves. But I will say that although the beginning is slow, the ending is much more exhilarating and interesting. Characters are also well developed, with some having unclear motives for helping certain other characters, and villains feeling quite villainous. The gameplay, just looking at the combat mechanics and not how much combat you have to do, is pretty fun and unique. It is the same as Bravely Default, so it kind of loses that innovative charm it had before, but it doesn't ruin combat for me. Plus, it's not like the combat is exactly the same, because now, with the cost of time, or actual money, you can freeze time and get some attacks in. I know this mechanic is optional, but the fact that it exists frustrates me just a little bit. I hate microtransactions, and they have no place in an RPG. You shouldn't be able to beat a game because you paid the most money. You should be able to beat it because you've gained the skill to beat it. But hey dogs, you say, don't these microtransactions help tone down the grinding and quicken the pace of the game? Well, to that I must ask why Bravely Second is designed with so much grinding to begin with. I can't help but feel it's precisely because they wanted to squeeze more money out of people, which I find rather scummy. Other than that, the combat is fun in short bursts, you know, when you don't have to grind. Grinding is almost mandatory in Bravely Second, which is a detriment to the game's pacing and overall structure. The storyline is pretty slow with getting off the ground, and grinding only accentuates these issues. I spent over 2.5 hours on one boss just grinding and retrying over and over, but that's not even the worst offender. The second boss comes back to life, and the first time I fought him, I went all out on what I thought was the final attack, only to be surprised with having to fight him and his healing buddy at full health again. It's bullshit like this that makes me really hate playing Bravely Default sometimes. Despite all this flack I'm giving the game, the one thing I really love about Bravely Default is its presentation, which looks amazing for a 3DS game and has a stellar soundtrack. Overall, I personally didn't like Bravely Second and Lair. It's a good sequel for those Bravely Default fans, but I don't think people new to the JRPG genre should try this out as their first JRPG. If you're not into turn-based JRPGs, then I would not recommend Bravely Second and Lair. And if grinding over and over for a boss isn't your thing, then I would again not recommend this game to you. There is a free demo on the eShop, so maybe I'm wrong and you'll love it. This is just my opinion, so yeah, there's no sense in not trying this out if you're interested. But as always, if you disagree or agree with me, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.